Every year, for every single team, the ultimate goal is to get to and win a Super Bowl. When it comes for the Detroit Lions going into 2025, the main question everyone has on their mind is the roster finally ready to do it? We're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, as we all know, anybody who is a football fan, we all know that the ultimate goal for football fans everywhere is to be at the end of the season, have our team be in the Super Bowl, winning the biggest game of the year, and obviously hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. I would say it is probably the most prestigious team championship award in perhaps all of American sports. And when you consider the NFL, there are only a couple of teams that are every single year considered contenders for this award. The Lions are one of those teams. They're one of the few teams that you could actually say are in a position right now to where everybody looks at them and says, okay, yes, they can actually contend for a Super Bowl. The Lions also are one of the few teams in the NFL that has not been to a Super Bowl. They have also not, actually hoisted a Lombardi Trophy. However, the question that some are asking is, are the Lions actually ready to win one? Are they actually able to win one? Well, I know this. With the draft not yet complete, some would tell me to wait until the offseason is officially, done and over with before I were to state one way or the other if the Lions are actually able to win a Super Bowl or not this year. However, I firmly believe that the draft is not a final decisive factor that the Lions are going to need to declare whether they're ready to compete and win a Super Bowl or not. But rather, I view it more as the cherry on top from a long established and rich history built by Holmes-Campbell over the last couple of years. Because when we examine and when we analyze the Lions, we get a very rich, however, yet peculiar case study of the progression an NFL team can experience over a quick turnaround of a couple of years. If we go back to 2021, the Lions were just not a good team in terms of talent, and it was very apparent. The Lions, however, despite not having the best talent in the world, they showed resolve, they showed determination, and obviously, as the hat states, they showed grit. And what they did is, despite the fact that they weren't a good team, they were able to keep a lot of games close with teams that, well, for lack of a better word, they should not have been able to do so with. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, you know what, a team may have gotten lucky or another team might have just had a bad day. But if you go back to the 2021 season, the Lions were consistently in a position where it's like, okay, we might not be the most talented team, but we're going to be that team that just does not know when to quit. We're going to be that team that always keeps fighting. We're going to be that team that just will consistently keep coming after you. So, in 2021, despite the fact the Lions only finished 3-13-1 in the first year of the Holmes-Campbell era, which I will say this, many people pretty much expected that was going to happen just due to the simple fact that we had such a vast upheaval of talent, that we were replacing, whether it was in terms of the front office, whether it was in terms of the coaching staff, whether it was in terms of the team itself. When you think about what the Lions were able to do in 2021, after that 2020 offseason, the Lions were actually able to show people that, hey, just because we don't have talent does not mean we can't try to compete with some of the better teams in the NFL. So that's 2021. When 2022 started, the Lions came out with an explosive offense, and they could clearly get into games where they could win shootouts if necessary. And in most cases, the Lions had the ability to put up points almost at whim. But the problem is that while our offense was able to do that, our defense was still having issues in which the Lions could just not simply get their defense on the same page as far as being a competitive unit like the offense. And that's why the Lions started woefully in 2022 with a 1-6 record. But I've talked about this before. All of a sudden, you have this particular position that the Lions are in. Fans are starting to question the Lions front office as far as Dan Campbell being able to be the right guy to lead the team. You now have people that are potentially calling for him to be fired. You obviously have people that are still going after Jared Goff. You still have people that are saying, oh, well, the Lions are just not getting it. They're not figuring it out. And then what happens? Sheila has a press conference at the practice field, which is not a norm for her or for virtually anybody that's ever owned the Lions. And she comes out and she voices her support for the Lions team, for the Lions front office, for the whole 9 yards. She says, listen, we understand things are difficult right now, but I trust the process. I believe in what we're doing here. And then what happens? Almost as if someone suddenly flipped a light switch, the Lions started winning games. And they started winning them in a whole bunch of different fashions. They would win them close, they'd win blowouts, they'd win comebacks, whatever the case was. In fact, think about this. In the first 24 games that Campbell and Holmes were in charge, the Lions went a miserable 4-19-1. 4-19-1. That was what we were able to accomplish in the first 24 games. But since then, and since that, press conference, how that whole thing, I believe, was kind of like the catalyst, the watershed to kind of get people moving in the right direction, the Lions over the following 44 games have put up an unbelievable record of 35-9, which is almost an 800% win rate. Which, think about that. To go from 4-19-1 to 35-9, that is a just absolutely vast difference. And when you're talking about that 35-9, that also includes 2 division titles, it includes 2 playoff victories, and it also includes a number 1 seeding. So, when you think about how the Lions over the last couple of years have clearly become a team that is a dominant force in the NFL, because I'm going to be honest with you, you do not win 80% of your games damn near if you have not become a dominant force. And that's over the last 2.5 years. Yet, I'm going to say this. Despite the clear, obvious, and, quick turnaround, there are still people that doubt the Lions' ability to officially close the deal and get that elusive championship win. Now, to me, this is simply a bit of folly, in my opinion, because, again, old prejudices, old thought processes are coming to life, and people have just not learned to accept a situation that is clearly right in front of their eyes. Because let's understand this. This team has been built the right way. It's been built the smart way. This team has been built meticulously through the draft with tons of excellent picks that have not only plugged up holes at crucial spots, but they're also great players that fit our culture that Holmes and Campbell has built and instilled. again, I just talked about this not that long ago, but the Lions started everything off in terms of their rebuild when they made the trade for Jared Goff, which also netted them 2 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick, which from those 3 picks, they were able to get another 3 picks out of it, which was 2 second-round picks and also another third-round pick. So they took 3 and got 6 by making great trades and still getting great players. And from that haul that I'm talking about, the Lions got themselves an immense number of player resources, and they have used those resources to make this team into the juggernaut that it is today. Now, I just want to put this out there. I want you all to consider that this roster, it currently is a top 5 roster, in my opinion. And what I want you all to think about is name me 5 other rosters that have been better built from top to bottom than the Detroit Lions. Like, seriously think about it. Think about 5 other teams that have rosters in terms of overall starting talent, in terms of actual depth, in terms of actual players that is better or similar to what the Lions currently have. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's going to be seriously hard to be able to find 5. I'm actually going to say it's going to be hard to find 2 or 3 teams that are either built similarly well or built even better than what the Lions are in terms of both overall talent and depth. Because when you review what the Lions currently have, they have a top 5 quarterback in Jared Goff. They have the number 1 running back duo in the game with Sonic and Knuckles. They have a top 5 tight end in Sam Laporta. They have 2 1,000-yard receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. They have a top 10 offensive line. I know people are worried about the offensive line, but it's like, listen, you still have Decker, you still have Ragnow, you still have Sewell. I'm expecting that, Glasgow is going to make a jump forward this year from where he was last year, and I'm expecting that Mahogany is really going to surprise people. You then have a top 5 edge rusher in Aiden Hutchinson. You have 2 what I would call top 20 defensive linemen in Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader. You have the best safety combination in the NFL with Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. You have the best punter in the NFL in Jack Fox. And you have one of the best kickers in the NFL with Jake Bates. Consider that. When you consider all of those top pieces that I just referred to, that I just named, and then you start thinking about all of the other pieces that, while they might not be within that top echelon of players, they're still pretty damn good. Think about it. Guys like Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Tim Patrick, Brock Wright, Terrion Arnold, Amik Robertson, Levi Onwuzurike. These are all guys that I guarantee you would have no problem finding other places to play in the NFL, and they would be able to be productive. The point that I'm trying to make here is that the Lions have an immense amount of talent and depth that most, if not all, teams would be, quite envious of. But what makes our roster truly able to finally win that elusive Super Bowl is more than just the talent the roster has. It's the identity that this team has from the culture and from Coach Campbell. Now, yes, that identity has a name. It's known as the grit culture. But I'm telling you this right now, it's more than just grit. It's more than just simply saying, oh, grit this, grit that, all grit, whatever. It's more than that. It goes to a level of depth that unless you've gone through and experienced what the Lions, and I would say our fans have, you wouldn't quite understand it. The Lions are one of the oldest franchises in the NFL, and at one point, we were actually one of the best teams in the NFL when we won 3 NFL championships back in the 1950s. But since those times, not only has the team taken a public image beating, but so has the city that it represents. I mean, you have to think about it here. The Lions, yeah, they've had themselves a really, really bad public image for quite a while. But the city of Detroit, much like how the Lions used to be in the 1950s and 60s, the city of Detroit back then was also considered one of the best cities as well. It had a booming automotive industry. It had a freaking very successful middle class. But since that time, especially in the 2000s, the city of Detroit, it just took an absolute beating in terms of public image. Not to get too political here, but you had the crime rate, you had politics, you had all this other stuff that was coming around, excuse me, that just really put a bad public image on what Detroit was. So when you think about it, what exactly does the grit culture embody? Well, it embodies more than just hard work and toughness. Those are certainly two of the characteristics that are a big part of the equation. But the grit culture speaks to a level of roughness, a level of, just being so abrasive to where things are not going to bother you. Excuse me. And that is only something that you get by being put down and doubted continuously. And think about it. This thought to be less than what you are, based upon the perceptions that are held by others, it also speaks to a level of perseverance that one only gets from constantly being hit in the mouth and being beat down by others. Because the only way you know to go once you've gotten to your lowest point is to go up. That's the only other place you got left. Once you've gotten to your lowest point, the only place you can go is go up. Because you've been put down so much. But the grit culture also speaks to a level of resistance. It speaks to a level of defiance, as I just talked about. That no matter how much we get beat down, no matter how hard we get hit, and no matter how hard things get, we will continue to power through and get up and keep coming back for more and work even harder to overcome whatever is in our way. The team not only reflects this because of what Dan Campbell has instilled in them, but it also reflects the city it represents as well. We as people that are from Michigan, and those that live in Detroit specifically, we do not give up. We do not quit. We do the hard work. We make things work. And yeah, we do those tough jobs and we put our all into everything we can. And that is exactly what the roster does and believes from the motivation and mentorship of Dan Campbell. This is a team that doesn't know what the word quit means, because to them, quitting is a loser's mindset. All this team knows how to do is to work and get better. And I'm telling you this, they will be better and work even harder in 2025. And I believe they will win the Super Bowl and hoist their first ever Lombardi Trophy. I truly believe it. Now again, I know some people are going to say, oh, well, if we don't address the edge rushing position, if we don't do this, we don't do that, this is all just, great grand talk. No, it's not. Yes, I agree. We do need to address the edge rushing position, but it's like, dude, everybody wants to continuously dog about that position, but it's like, this is the same defense that with 16 different starters on it, on IR, we were able to post a 15-2 record and still have a top 10 defense. Think about that. How many other teams can you think of that have gone through what the Lions have gone through last year and still post a top 10 defense? I can't think of many, if not all. Like, there's just not another example that I can think of off the top of my head. For a defense to be able to do that, to continue to be a competitive unit, maybe not the best unit, but a competitive unit despite losing 16 different starters over the course of the season, that's unheard of. So yes, I agree. We need to get an edge rusher in the draft. I agree that is something the Lions need to do. And I fully expect that Holmes will do it. I also fully expect the Lions will bring back Zadarius Smith. I fully expect that this defensive line will have a pass rushing element that fans will stop worrying about. But even without that, the Lions proved last year they have a team, they have a roster that can do what we're thinking it can do. It can get to a Super Bowl. It can win a Super Bowl. Everybody wants to take a look at what the Eagles did last year and say, oh, well, that's what they have to be. No, they don't. Again, this is going back to the same thought process I've talked about before where people are like, oh, well, we have to copy. We have to do what other teams are doing if we want to have a chance of winning. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Lions have made it their mission to be the exact opposite about how other teams build their teams. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what did I just say the Lions have done over the last 2.5 years? We've gone 35-9 by having that approach. I'm telling y'all, the Lions have the roster. All they need is to add 1 or 2 more pieces in very strategic spots, which I fully expect they're going to do this offseason. And then at that point, then, everybody that's going, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, absolutely losing their mind over this edge rushing business, then they're going to come back to the reality of the situation and realize, okay, this team was able to do all of these amazing things the year prior, even though we had all of these different problems we had to overcome. And now we've just addressed the one main area of weakness. So then it's like, what are you now worried about? What are you now concerned about? I'm telling y'all, this team has it. It has that it factor. It has that ability to win. And I fully expect that it will win. I truly do. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to end this episode, and I just want to say to everybody, thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that, folks, I hope I was able to give you guys something else to think about. I was hoping that I was able to give you guys a different perspective. Whether this is the first time you're watching me or you guys have been watching me forever and a day. I also hope that you guys got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.